So today we're talking about the 2018 sci-fi film called Aniara. It is by two directors who do not have many other entries in their letterbox pages here. But this movie, honestly, the first thing that caught my eye was the poster. I think this is such an incredible poster. So just like visually, the themes of sci-fi are right there, and it's just like this is the kind of movie I would like. I got that from just seeing the poster, and so I had to see it. I know I saw the poster maybe like a year ago, and I finally got around to it because I just forgot about it and then remember it last week when I was choosing what I wanted to watch. But this movie is just like completely up my alley. Existential sci-fi, and it's grounded in reality. It's like a space movie. It's not like magical powers or anything. There's subtle like magicalness with her AI contraption, that Mira, that helps people escape the dread of living on a spaceship going nowhere. But yeah, I mean, the log line really says it all. It happens pretty quickly. A ship carrying a bunch of passengers to Mars says it's going to be just 3 weeks. And then, something small happens, something uncalculated, and now they are veering off course with no way of getting back on course unless they find a celestial body where they can just slingshot around it and head back. That is what the captain says to everybody, and reassures them it won't take longer than 2 years. But then it takes longer. It does sure take longer. So first, spoiler-free thoughts. I think that this is a must watch if you are a big sci-fi fan like myself. I think this is just like amazing concept executed really, really well. Like just the existentialness of space, the insignificance of life, and just like an individual human life. And in this case, it was like the insignificance of all their human lives on this spaceship. It's like, assumedly, there's probably a lot of other settlers that had already gone to Mars, and they have so many other just things going on that, this one spaceship with a bunch of people in it, you know what? Probably not the biggest of their problems with the Earth dying and everything. So, that's one small thing where it's like the Earth contact, there was like no outside contact whatsoever. And you think like if they had this technology to build these kind of spaceships, these like super vacation-y, have everything you want spaceships, like Wall-E, that, they might be able to like communicate people and figure it out. But hey, maybe their communications got, jammed with that little crash as well. But you never know. But again, the existentialness, and I think that really shined with the astronomer character. I think the character name here is just, the astronomer. And she was absolutely incredible. I thought it was like, she was funny at the same time as being existential. And I really loved her character. She was probably my favorite character, because every time our protagonist, like, she bunked with her for a bit, and every time she bumps into her, she's just like, life is meaningless, and, we, there's no other planet. We're not going to hit anything. We're just drifting off to space into nowhere, and, she just gets drunk after a few years and then just goes a bit crazy, and, mad props to her. I thought she was great. I think performance-wise, all around, everybody was incredible, especially the lead, and also Arvin here, who was in Triangle of Sadness. He was one of the officers on the ship in Triangle of Sadness. I knew I recognized him from somewhere, but I couldn't pinpoint it until after I watched the movie. He was awesome as well. But no, honestly, everybody was really, really good. And like her girlfriend in the movie, Isagel, she was incredible at well. Just like the contrast of both of their characters near the very end. I won't spoil anything, but she goes through a lot internally, and I mean every character does, but her specific journey was very highlighted at the end. I thought she did a killer job, and I think that's a highlight of this movie. I've said it before that I think sci-fi is best when it's grounded not only in the real world, has ties to the real world. I really love that stuff, but when it's about humans, and that's what every sci-fi should be. Like the grand metaphor for everything should be about humans, and this one is just a very clear example of contemplating existence, our insignificance in the universe, the vastness of space. I know the astronomer had a good short monologue in the movie about just like the vastness of space and how small we are. And this movie is literally that. It's just they're lost in space and they got to figure out what to do. And I think I draw parallels to On the Silver Globe, a movie that I found that was very confusing, and the parts I liked best of it was just the grand scope of like rebuilding a society. They forgetting what happened before, and just like these people starting over, trying to figure things out. The knowledge from previous generations is just getting obscured. And this one kind of does that in a lesser time period, if we're not counting like the very, very last shot of this movie, which I won't spoil yet. But this does that very, very well, because essentially they get knocked off course, and then this is their new planet. You know, people were trying to cultivate Mars to become this human-friendly planet, but this is now their new planet that they have to learn to live with. And they're just relearning how to live, because, I mean, so much of the movie is these characters awaiting their destination, thinking that it's going to come, and them just trying to pass the time and trying to have an escape. And I think that's also a really big theme in the movie, escape. Because, yeah, again, this is just like an extended trip, a lot of the people on board think. And they're just trying to find ways to pass the time. And I mean, is that really so different from people on Earth right now? They're just trying to find ways to pass the time, trying to find entertainment, trying to find comfort. And a big part of the movie is the machine. Oh, I forget exactly what it's called. It's called the Mina, right? The Mina machine, which I think it gets shown very early on as well. Our main character, she is the operator of this room on the spaceship, where it has these crazy lights up top, and whenever you look down, you kind of get into a trance, and you're teleported back to some memories of back on Earth. Oftentimes, it's like waterfalls, natural settings. It's an escape for people to remember what Earth feels like. And like I said before, that's probably the most like out of this world sci-fi kind of thing that doesn't have a huge basis in reality. She also has this like little tablet thing that she can put up to people's heads and see what they're dreaming about in this machine. At first I was like, oh, I really wanted this to be like nothing crazy. Like, I feel like sci-fi is the wrong word, because this is definitely a sci-fi movie. Nothing crazy like out of this world magical, which it kind of is. But I think it really did work, because it treated that machine more as a being, and more as something that it's more as an AI, really. I guess it's kind of ahead of its time by like 5 years, whereas this whole AI craze right now in 2023. But it's like this AI that you don't really get a perfect description of how it functions, but it just knows the memories of the passengers, and it evolves and it shapes itself to try to help them the best. And then when they get veered off course, so many people come to it for an escape, and it kind of like, it overloads it. It's like overworking itself like a machine. And the machine, the AI, the Mina, whatever it is, needs to also have a break and have an escape itself. Like the escape needed an escape because everyone kept on flocking to it in their time of need. It was just an interesting like AI in a sci-fi movie, comparable to like HAL, where it is like an AI. It seems sentient, and oftentimes it does talk to her. She tries to write down what it says, and a lot of it's just nonsense, very, very metaphorical, and just allegorical, kind of like Dark Star as well. I love that AI at the end of Dark Star. It kind of felt like that trope, but it was done in a very unique, obscure, just undefined way that I really, really liked. And I thought it really worked at the end. And so, last spoiler-free thoughts. I think that's, again, yeah, must watch if you're a sci-fi fan. And it does get a bit weird. It is comparable to High Life. I saw a lot of Letterboxd comments comparing it to High Life, and just like the lengths that people are going, the kind of disgusting ways that they're trying to cope with everything. Because yeah, I mean, if people were trying to cope in this situation, that things are going to go wrong. I'm surprised there wasn't like as much crime on the spaceship as there might be, because like, or people trying to like overthrow the leadership, because the leadership kind of remained intact the whole time. But things get really, really weird and unsettling, and I at first was questioning it, but then after a bit, I was like, yes, this makes complete sense. People are literally losing their mind, and just the weirdness is a good representation. Kind of like On the Silver Globe. It was weird watching it in the moment, but like at the end of the day, it's a very good representation of people's mental state in these sort of situations. And even though Aniara is way more accessible, I think, than On the Silver Globe, I think it goes to that length far enough that I think it was really, really satisfying in the end for me. But again, it does get a bit weird. It's not like your typical run-of-the-mill, maybe like a Ad Astra or The Martian, where it can be a little more lighthearted. It's very depressing. It is a very depressing movie, but a very thought-provoking, really, really well-done movie. And so, full on into spoilers. I think I mentioned before, the first thing I want to say is, like, it takes place in 25 years, which is definitely less than On the Silver Globe. And the time jumps come, like, exponentially quicker and exponentially longer. So at first, of course, we get onto the spaceship, and he's like, oh, it's going to be a 3-week journey to Mars. Everything's going to go great. And I think they titled that chapter, like, business as usual, the journey, something like that. And so they get veered off course. And then we have a time jump. I think it's like a few months later, and everybody's still trying to, get used to it, trying to get into routine. A lot of people, they're going to the Mira machine, trying to figure that out, and she has a lot of workload there. And she specifically says that she isn't really, like, getting hit by this situation as much as other people because she doesn't really have anybody that she's waiting for. She's been separated previously, and then she had a few flings on this spaceship with just random men. And eventually that leads into the romance plot where her and, I forget her name, even though I said it not too long ago, Isengel, where she is trying to get with her and trying to make that her purpose for living. Because after the astronomer, again, my favorite character, tells her that, there probably is no planet that we're going to, then, again, it's very subtle, but you see that she turns from, or whatever, we're going to turn around eventually. I'm just doing my job at the Mirror Machine, trying to get more people to help out with it. She's very passionate about it, very good at it. And then she turns, when the astronomer says that, very subtly, to trying to pursue Isengel, have a relationship there, and trying to find some meaning in this meaningless voyage to nowhere. And it was subtle. It was really well done. And then the next time jump, I think it was 2 years later, where still nothing has happened. More of the same. And the Mirror Machine, again, it gets overworked. People start to see really disastrous things. I mean, she is in it, and she is in a lake. She's just laying back in the lake, and the birds in the sky, they start disintegrating. And that's her first hint that this machine needs a rest. It needs to be, it needs to reboot. Just like everybody else, it needs time off from just being on all the time and just helping all these people, having all of their grief put on it. It's doing a lot of the heavy lifting. People are looking forward to it. And the captain believes that they've created this good ecosystem and that the Mirror Machine is a very, very important part of it. And so when it explodes, rumors start to spread that it's her fault. She was using it on her off time, and then he punishes her. And I think a lot of the time when I was watching the movie with the captain, I was like, he's like a horrible captain. Some of his decisions are just the worst. It's like, why don't people overthrow him? I feel like I said before, there should have been like more crime in this movie, or like maybe people try to rise up and take over or something. But they put her in prison because of this, because the rumors were spread that she destroyed the Mirror Machine. And in prison, Isengel is also there because she was trying to defend her. And then they get to know each other. They form a relationship. And then it cuts to even more years later. I think it was like 6 years later. And then they finally get tasked with more jobs after being in jail for a few years. And our main character, she goes to teach Isengel. She goes to be another tech person back on the ship that she used to do. And then they start their lives together. They're living together in the same room. And then on the ship, now it's 6 years later, like a few years after the captain said that they should be able to turn around, everyone's kind of knows at this point that, okay, we're not turning around. So everybody's trying to adapt to it, and then cults start to form, which I thought was really fun. And the first scene that can be related to High Life is when they are asked to join the cult. They're in an elevator with a character, and she's like, oh, we're going to go where the Mirror Machine used to be, in the ruins of it, and we're having this, like, prayer, this ceremony, this cult ritual. And the main character was scared at first that she was going to be, like, sacrificed because she was the one who the blame was pinned on. But then they go, and it's just a giant orgy. I watched a YouTube video on it, and I forget the YouTube video, but they were saying that this orgy is them trying to feel the highs that the mirror machine used to give them, trying to have that serotonin release in the form of sexual pleasure in that area where everybody is just there having this communal feeling. And so our main character, we've seen her in the past few scenes, have her life with Isengel, and she's very happy with her. And she goes into this cult orgy, and then she starts getting with other people, and Isengel looks very not into it. But then eventually one guy comes on her, and then the ceremony ends, and then we cut to later, she's pregnant, and she's about to give birth, and she is very not happy. Very easy way to put it. She is just not doing so great. I think that the fact that she is having this child on a ship that is destined to go nowhere is just a huge burden. It's like an extension of you. It's kind of like how people nowadays, I know a few people, and just like it's in general the media, some people, they don't want to have kids because they don't want to bring their kids into this world that is deteriorating, that climate change is ravishing, and there's just so much wrong with the world right now that they don't want to have kids because they don't want to bring them into this world. And this is kind of that to the extreme. Isengel very clearly wasn't happy about the fact that she's bringing this child into this circumstance, this doomed circumstance from the beginning. And yeah, she just starts to go downhill quick after that. She has the baby. There are a few moments of her and the main character with the baby. They're a happy family for a bit. And then there's a scene in a pool, which is really, really dark, where she's with the baby in the pool. She's just holding it. And she holds it in the water, dips him in the water for a little too long, for a few seconds. And then somebody comes in the pool area and it's like, oh, we need you, Isengel, for something. And she raises the baby, and the baby lets out like this little cough. And it's just so unsettling, but so well done. Because, yeah, she's still grasping with that, and she kind of just wants to put it out of its misery, her own child out of its misery. It's really dark, really messed up. But again, this is like the point in the movie where everybody is just like, their brains are just trying to find any sort of escape, trying to figure out the situation, and everybody's just going crazy. And man, yeah, that was just a really, really dark scene. And then our main character, she's trying her best. She wants to make this device that projects images of the Earth on both sides out into space. So when you look out the window of the spaceship, you see these images of Earth, these waterfalls and everything. She thinks that'll bring back morale, like how the mirror machine did. And she pitches it to the captain. And he's like, no, we need you educating our future kids. We don't have time for this. We don't have the resources for this, blah, blah, blah. And so she is now the teacher of these kids. But, she's still doing okay. A big turning point is that I forget exactly the order of all the events that's happening, that like everything that I've mentioned. I don't remember 100% where it fits in, but they find that there is a unidentified object coming towards them. And it'll be there in like a year and a bit times. I think it was like almost 2 years' time. It'll be there. And they think that it is a refueling container. Earth has sent them a refueling container, and that's going to be the savior. They're going to put back all their fuel because all their fuel was lost during that initial crash, and they're going to be able to turn around. And so the captain, again, he's not a very good captain. He's like, all right, we got to boost morale. That's his whole thing. His whole perspective is we have to boost morale. We have to just, trick everybody into believing that, the situation is going to turn out, because otherwise it's going to devolve into chaos. And I mean, yeah, that is, again, a commentary on some world events that have actually happened. Like, are these leaders, like, are they lying to the general public? And this guy, he clearly is a representation of somebody who believes that these secrets should be kept. The secret that they're not going to find a body in 2 years to turn them around. That this unidentified object contains fuel. Hey, everybody, it contains fuel, even though they have absolutely no clue. It was just like somebody said that in the board meeting, and then they all took it for fact. And then he put a giant message out to everybody on all the screens, and he's like, we're saved. Everybody, this means to celebrate. And then everybody celebrates. They're awaiting this object to come to them. They practice. I really like the the grappling hooks that go out into space to try to grab it. And then eventually it does come. It comes out, they grab it, they bring it in, and it's just this giant, long metal rod. They do some tests on it, and they try to examine it, and they don't even know how to, like, open it. It's just the giant metal rod. And they thought it was from Earth, and then the astronomer points out that this is just a random event. We have no clue where this came from. It kind of reminds me of the monoliths in 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's just like, things happen by chance, and this is just a random occurrence. This item was just happened to be coming towards us. It's meaningless. And everybody's like, oh, we can try to get some power out of it. I'm sure this substance, we can figure it out and maybe it'll power us, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually, nothing comes of it. The astronomer, again, she's been in a drunken stupor, existential, knows that everything's going downhill, nihilist, great, love her. And then when she mentions that to the captain, that, oh, this thing's probably nothing, and she was like, wants to tell people, the captain shoots her with a taser, and that ends up killing her. And I think one of the last words that she said, that we're all just in a giant sarcophagus, a giant coffin. And then the very next scene, they're at her funeral, and then they jettison her out into space. And she's just gone, floating in her own coffin. I think she was just like wrapped up, and they sent her out into space. And it's like, again, the captain, horrible captain, literally kills one of the astronomers on the ship. And nobody rises against him again. I mean, I guess they're so far into it that they're like, all right, if he's taking a bunch of responsibility, let's let him do that. Oh, and I love that scene where he was working out, and she comes to him for something, and he's just working out, and he does like a whole handstand on these like wood logs. I was like, did he actually do that? That's crazy that he can do that. That's awesome. Side note. Again, I am bashing a lot of the captain's decisions, but I think it's a really good character choice. Like, the actor killed it, and I think the writing of the captain was really, really cool, because he's just somebody who wants to comfort the community in this time of crisis and will go to any means necessary for that. He works out a lot. It says a bunch about his character where he's still like kind of positive, but like, I was going to say negatively positive, but destructively positive with his outtake. And he still has like this leadership complex about him where he thinks that his word is best for everybody still. But he was a great character. I just want to say that he really was a great character. And so nothing comes of that item. And then she eventually, maybe in secret, maybe with the captain knowing, she makes her hologram device. And then everybody looks at it for a bit. They're like, oh, wow, that's cool. Nice. And yeah, she's trying to bring something positive. And the last conversation that she has with Isengel is in bed, super depressed. And then she's like, wow, you're so happy about everything. And she's like, oh yeah, I finally got this thing to work, blah, blah, blah. It's great. Isengel's like, wow, yeah, that's cool. Trying to put on an act. And then she goes, and then the main character, she goes, shows everybody her device. She comes back. She can't open the door because she pushes open the door, and Isengel's body is right behind the door. She had hung herself on the doorknob, and she goes to the bathroom, and their son had been killed as well. And she had killed the family. Again, that scene hit pretty hard. Yeah. Isengel's character, just like the subtle, slow decline of her and the contrast with the main character. And I think just like it has a good variety of characters and how they dealt with everything. Like the core four characters, the main character, Isengel, the captain, and the astronomer. I think all of their takes on how they were dealing with everything was just like, it was so well done. Like all the differences there, the diversity of how they were dealing with everything. It was awesome to see. And then after that, we have another time jump where it goes to, I think, like 25 years later. Everybody's praying in the old mirror room. Everything is just like completely destroyed. There are still a few survivors trying to figure things out. And then they have like a ceremony where somebody plays like just like the worst music possible. Everybody like pity claps because it's the only form of entertainment they're getting at all. Then the captain's like, hey, I want to give you, our main character, a medal for this device that you created. And she takes the medal, and she's like, yeah, whatever, this is meaningless. She sees that the captain had a bandage on his wrist. He had a wounded wrist because he seemingly cut himself. And yeah, everybody was just going through it. It was the deterioration of a society. And again, just like such a good journey for the audience, going through being lost in space, being insignificant, having absolutely no hope for the future. Like those last few dreary scenes just like encapsulated it so well, and just like the journey to get to there, it was just awesome. And then I mentioned earlier that the movie takes place in the span of like 26 years, and then the final shot is 5 million years later. And it shows the spaceship with absolutely nothing in it, just like bones and dust. And then it finally reaches a planet 5 million years later. This has got to be a record for like biggest time jump in movie history. I mean, 2001 had the bone shot. It's like cavemen throwing a bone in the air. It cuts to like a space station. But this 5 million years in the final shot. That was crazy. I loved it. But yeah, in the end, it was a great movie. I really, really loved it. This is completely on my alley, and really happy I watched it. Would recommend.